Porchlight Letters podcast, number 2154. We are getting closer to the magic number of 2191. And I totally realized I totally forgot to change over this, so we're going to do it right now. That's that one. And sorry, I thought I had it down to do it and I totally forgot to. All right, so now we are good. All right, got my right QR code up there, got my right tagline going across the bottom. All right, we're good. Okay, so we are talking about weathering the storm tonight. We face many storms during our lifetime. How do we get through them? Now, what is it? There's that saying. Something about storms and learning to dance in the rain. I'm going to have to try and remember that one. Yeah, so one of my favorite quotes, and sometimes there are times that I forget what it is. It's life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. And that's exactly what we have to do when we weather the storm. We got to learn to dance in the rain. I personally, if it is raining outside, I am out there dancing in it, unless there is thunder and lightning overhead or close by, because I don't want to get zapped. So, but anyway, so here we go with weathering the storm. Storms aren't just weather patterns. They're life's way of shaking us, testing our foundation, and reminding us what's anchored deep within. The roots that hold during chaos are the ones we've cultivated through intention, reflection, and resilience. So what it teaches us is storms reveal what's truly rooted versus what's just surface level. What is it within inside you that has those deep tap roots rather than the ones that are just along the surface? We've got a park near us, and they had what do they call it? A microburst, I think it was called. And it came through, and there's a couple of trees that were completely uprooted. And I'm looking at them going, they had one tap root that went from the center down, but all the other roots were surface roots, which didn't give it any stability. So that microburst of storm came through and just ripped them out. They were still attached by the taproot, but they had nothing to hold them in there. What else does storms teach us? They remind us that growth doesn't only happen in the sunny seasons. There are some plants and seeds out there that cannot be released unless it is high heat. So in the case of when you have forest fires, that is a type of storm. It's a firestorm. So there are some trees whose seeds do not start germinating until it has been through extreme heat. So we're talking fire heat here. And they actually cause these seed casings to burst open, so these trees can start growing. So some need high heat, some need cold heat, some need a lot of water. So the storms are good. So they remind us that, growth doesn't happen only in the sunny seasons. There is stuff that flourish when it rains, like grass and weeds. How do I know this? Because my lawn is basically dry and the weeds are basically gone. But when the rains come through within a few days, I have got weeds and grass. Grass needs mowing and the weeds need pulling. So I know about that. The support systems matter, whether they're people, practices, or personal beliefs. When you're going through storms, you need to have those supports. So you need to have that support system in place. Who is it that is going to help carry you through when the winds get too strong? Who is it that's going to help shelter you from the rain? Think about these things. Who in your circle and your personal beliefs. So this is going to your faith, your spiritual beliefs, whatever it is that you have that helps keep you anchored in who you are. Even practices. Do you pray? Do you meditate? Do you chant? There's all sorts of practices when the storms come that people will fall back on and ask for help. In my case, I like to give thanks for gratitude. I like to give thanks for the rain. I like to give thanks for the storm, because lots of good things come out of storms. So what happens when you let go of the need to control the storm and focus on staying grounded? Oh, lots of good things happen. Yeah. when you let go of the need to control, you cannot control the storms. Whether they are the physical storms with the rain and the thunder and the lightning and everything else that happens around the house, you can't have no control over that. It's the same way in your life. When the storms come, you don't have any control. The only thing you have control over is how you stay focused to help you stay grounded. So you don't get, excuse me, so you don't get caught up in the, excuse me, so you don't get caught up. So you can control how you, like with any storm that comes along, whether it's physical, whether it is in your life, whether it is something mentally that you're dealing with the storm, the only thing you have control over is how you react to it. And how you react to it is when you focus on staying grounded. What practices do you have in place for that? You recognize that not all storms are meant to destroy. Some are meant to clear. I love it when storms come through here because they clear the air. When you're in a dry environment like here in Arizona, and this is happening right now, we get a lot during this time of year. We get a lot of air quality issue warnings and stuff around here because there's the air has been very dry. We get a lot of wind that comes through. I was sitting here today and I was on a Zoom with my business mentor, and I hear the garage door do its thing whenever wind comes through. It feels like it's trying to push the seal. And I looked outside and I could not see the house across the street because of the dust storm that was going down the street. It was like, wow. So some storms come in to clear out the dust. They clear out the dust. They help the brains think a little clearer when those storms come in. So when it comes to being in the storms, choose presence over panic. Be present in the moment. What can you be grateful for with the storm? It's one thing I like to do if I'm going through a storm. It's like, what can I be grateful for? I can be grateful for the fact that the storm is helping clear out the nasty air so that when Zephy and I go for our walk, the air is going to be nice and crisp and fresh and clean. Is it going to water my lawn? Yes. But I am grateful that my lawn gets water because it makes it look nice and green and not dead. So I am grateful for that. So choose presence over panic. And during that time of presence, meditate, pray, think of affirmations, think of things you can be grateful for. Pull out a pen and paper and just start listing everything that you could be grateful for. Keep yourself present. And you're helping those around you too, because there could be other people in the house that are caught up in this life storm and are not sure how to get through it. Lead by example. How can we carry forward? Practice gratitude even in the middle of the mess. I've just been talking about that. So practice your gratitude. Get your journal out and write what you're grateful for in your journal. Journaling also helps too. So when you are in that storm, writing down your feelings into the journal is a great way to help release them and recognize them and be present with them. And say thank you for those emotions that are coming up. Reconnect with your inner calm and routines that center you. What grounds you? What centers you? I've got friends who, like me, like to go and watch and be near water, be outside, scrunching your toes in the grass. Not that I have any because my lawn is dead, but we haven't had rain for a little bit. So reconnect with your inner calm and the routines that center you. Tell your story, not as a victim of the storm, but as someone who stood firm through it. If you've been watching me for a while, you will know that I talk a lot about what I went through with Brad when he passed with his cancer journey. That was a massive storm for us, and how we stayed positive through it during that time. And neither one of us was down at the same time. One was always up while the other might have been down, and we switched those roles backwards and forwards. So we were always supporting each other and helping each other through the storm. And when we had another medical emergency, another medical issue come up and he had to stop treatment, there was another micro, that was like those little micro bursts. And then his passing has been a major storm. Getting back on my feet, finding, and this whole last 7.5 years, even still, I'm still figuring out who I am as just me. Not me as a partner, not me as a wife, not me as a part of a couple. I'm just me. Who am I? And that can be a struggle. Journaling has helped so much with that. Being able to be on here on these podcasts and share those little bits of that story with you, because somebody out there, and share your story. And this is why you need to tell your story. You may not think you have much of a story to tell, but if you start going back through your life, it will surprise you at how much you have been through. What can you do with that information? Turn around and help somebody else. You might have a friend who goes through a similar storm as what you've been through. Maybe something that happened to you during your storm might help them. It's one of the reasons I joined up with Immerman Angels years ago when Brad was still alive. I was sharing my story with other cancer caregivers to help them through their storms. Some of the advice some of my story landed with them. Sometimes it didn't. But they got these little nuggets. They got these little nuggets out of what we had to tell of my story that helped them through their story. So you never know who's going through something similar to what you've been through. But if you share your story, it may land with a person, and you may never, ever know that you had that impact on somebody's life. But your story needs to be told because it is out there and it is going to impact somebody's life. Are you going to let them flounder, or are you going to tell your story so that you can help somebody else not go through the struggles that you went through, but go through it a little more prepared? So on the legacy side, what storms did your ancestors survive? And think about family stories like wars, migration, heartbreak, illness, rebuilding. What else is in there? Heartbreak, losing a spouse, losing a child. There was going through, and when I'm doing genealogy, there's a lot of times that I come through these massive families, where they've had 10 to 15 children. And you go through and you're putting in, and you're finding the birth and death dates to put into there. And you find some of them died a few days old, some are weeks old, some are months old. Some didn't even see their 10th birthday. Some didn't see their 20th birthday, because at that time they had a lot of kids because there wasn't much else entertainment around. And where was I going with that? Okay, so they had all these children. And in fact, on one of the censuses, I think it's the 1910 US Census, it asks how many children were born living and how many are still alive. They counted that I think it's the 1910. Pretty sure it was the 1910 one. It might have been the 1920. Which is the one that just came out. 1940s just came out. Yeah, it's somewhere around the turn of the 20th century in the 1900s. There was one where they asked you how many children were born alive and how many are still alive. And then if you saw that, that she had 10 children, but you only have 5 on the list and there's actually 6 still living, you're missing 1 and you're missing another 4 that didn't make it to 1910. So what storms have you, where am I? So how did they endure that? What strength have you inherited from their storms? So what storms did your ancestors survive? Think about family stories like wars, migrations, heartbreak, illness, rebuilding. And it could have been that they went through also natural disasters and they had to rebuild after that, rebuilding after a war, rebuilding their lives when they migrated from one country to another, rebuilding after heartbreak, rebuilding after illness. How did they endure that? What strengths have you inherited from their storms? What have you learned from their stories to help strengthen you going through your own stories? And you might say, but they were alive 100 years ago. Things are different today. Yes, but the mentality of how they weathered their storms, it doesn't matter what century you're in. It's still relevant. One of the top selling self-help books out there, Think and Grow Rich, that was published in the 1930s, yet information in there is still relevant today. One of my favorite books is Dream Big by Dr. David Schwartz. That was published in the 1960s, if I remember correctly. And what was interesting about that is when I was reading that, he said, even now, this is written and this is paraphrasing what I remember. He said, even now they're talking about building a tunnel between England and France that goes underwater. That was in the 1960s. That became a realization like 50 years later. that became a real, when did the channel open? So the channel is from that dream back then, the big dream that they had. How could they do it? Could they do it? It took them many years before they actually started construction and actually succeeded in making that happen. So think about things like that. And that was in the 1960s they were talking about that. And it opened in, I don't know what year. But think about that. And here are some of your reflection questions that you can put into your reflection journal. Porchlight Reflection Journal. We have pages in here for you to do that. And your reflection questions, they were also in the description below. What's a storm I've weathered that shaped who I am today? That's your first question. Second question, what or who helps me stay grounded when life gets turbulent? And what roots have I strengthened recently? Some good questions in there. And in closing, storms pass, but what stays, what holds, that's the truth of you. Stay rooted even when the winds come. And with that, we are out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic, sparkling evening, and we will catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. Hei konera.